You're listening to The Disconnect, a podcast about anxiety and how it disconnects you from your normal self. We're here to share our journey and help you through yours to show you you're not alone. And now, your hosts, Austin Grant and Lindsey Jones. Welcome to episode 16 of The Disconnect. For those who have been following along with us, welcome back. If you're just tuning in for the first time, we're so glad that you're listening. In our most recent episode, Navigating Negativity, we talked about how we both have combated negative thoughts during quarantine and how we've been able to stay mindful and positive during these times. And today, we're actually excited to introduce our very first guest on The Disconnect, one of my best friends from college, Drew Rakosi. Drew, you're on The Disconnect. It's happening, dude. How's it going today?
Hey Austin, no, thank you for having me. It's awesome. It's really cool. I'm actually kind of mad. It took you guys up to 16 episodes before you allowed me to come on.
There's some logistic things we had to figure out, It
Yeah, we had
takes
to
some
figure out
time.
how to record one remotely. That was the biggest kind of learning curve. There is like, okay, how? Because traditionally, how we were recording when we first started, was through a program, and we had our mics, we were both together, and so the thought of like bringing someone in, we looked through a kind of a couple different ideas, and then we found this. It was kind of interesting with COVID and everything, how it forced Lindsey and I to be remote. We
hmm
kind of had to figure something out, so it just worked out so well. So that's why we figured, let's bring on some guests. So you're the first one. You should feel special.
Well, I'm super excited to be here. Huge fan of the show. For those of you who don't know, again, my name is Drew. Me and Austin were actually roommates in college for like 3 years of my life. So I feel like I know him better than my family sometimes. And Lindsay is a new friend.
Best 3 years of his life.
Yeah.
All right, so Drew, first question for you. Are you by any means a medical professional?
I am not. I am a
Cool.
salesperson.
Good, good. So don't try to, he's going to try to sell you on anxiety. That's good. Um, no, yeah. So again, as we mentioned in each episode, the guests we'll have on the future, if we get medical professionals, that's great. But, anything Drew says, he's just talking off personal experience, and that's kind of what we want to get. That anecdotal piece of a day in the life of someone else. We've talked about our stories and stuff, and so we're super stoked. Thanks for taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I do think this podcast is, very much needed. I mean, mental health in general is something I've always struggled throughout my life, and the fact that you guys are able to kind of talk about it is not only does it display bravery, but I feel like it may help some people in need.
All right, Lindsay, take it away with the first question.
All right. So, Drew, I know that Austin knows you, but I have personally never met you, which still salty about. We're gonna make it happen someday, I promise.
One day, one day.
Um, but let's go ahead and just kind of tell us about yourself a little bit. Where are you from? What do you do, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. More than happy to talk about myself. I feel like I do that all the time. Um, yeah, so I'm originally from Los Angeles area in a little town called Glendora. I grew up there since I was born, and about till I was about 16. I was imagine yourself being in high school. You finish finals, and then you come home. You sit at a dinner table, and your parents say, "Hey guys, um, now that we're done with school, you got 1 week. We're moving to San Francisco." At that time, I didn't really have much anxiety about kind of my well roundings. I had a really good set of friends, but moving when you're in the middle of high school is definitely rough. So I moved to San Francisco to the Bay Area. I started my schooling there and then finished out high school. Ended up going to college in Arizona where I met Austin. My day job, I'm in tech sales, so I sell a lot of software, and it's ironic my situation because I talk to people all the time, and I'm not really a big fan of a lot of people, so that's what I do for a living, though. and yeah, that's just a little bit about me, kind of what I do for my work, and then on my free time, I like to run and be active as much as I can.
So I know you mentioned a little bit, but what what has been your experience with anxiety, and like more specifically, like when did you when did you first notice it? Um, how did it progress maybe through that big old move? Um, and then like what was it like in college?
Yeah, no, I guess going back, I was a senior in high school, and I went to a graduation party with my girlfriend at the time, and I we were doing some of the grad games, and it was a party at the school. They locked down the whole school. Um, there weren't like alcoholic drinks or anything. We were like 18, but all of a sudden I got really hot. I got the shivers, and I was nauseous, and I threw up, kind of like outside the school, and a lot of the kids thought maybe I was drinking or not, but it was purely from anxiety, and I didn't really know much about anxiety at the time. Um, so when I went to kind of the doctor, everything was fine. They did all the tests, CAT scan, upper endoscopy when they stick a camera down in your body. They did it all, and physically I was fine, but I guess mentally was the real concern. And um, throughout college, I was struggling with kind of how to maintain myself mentally, and what I realized at the end of the day was talking things out, and kind of going to therapy really, really helped. At least originally at first. I've added on some coping mechanisms now to really help me, especially during COVID. But at the time, yeah, Austin, I'd say it happened senior year, and then throughout college, I was just struggling and dealing with it.
So what did it look like in college? Like as obviously in high school you mentioned some things. Um, but what did it look like when it's a big move. You're moving away. You're moving to Arizona. You're living in California your whole life, and moving states, being away from your family, being away from the comfort of, this area, the Bay Area that you had to once grow accustomed to, and it was a huge shift. But I imagine you finally got comfortable, and then it was like, oh, cool. Now I'm graduating and I'm moving away again. So I'm sure that had some effect. But what did it like? What did it look like in college? Like,
Yeah, in college, it was again, like you said, change. Change is probably the most craziest thing in our people's lives today, and change had a lot to deal with it. So, for an example, like in college, just simply going out to a bar with friends, I just didn't want to do that. I felt terrible. I felt nauseous. I felt anxiety that I couldn't get over. So I would just stay in and stay home and stay in my apartment, stay in my dorm room, and wouldn't go out to parties. I wouldn't socialize. But the thing about it is, it's a vicious cycle, right? If you don't, overcome your anxiety or even try to overcome it, it gets worse. We are herd animals as people, as they say, and we need to be even have friends and need to be with people to help us solve things through. So in college, it really turned into me trying to fight this with going to the gym, working out, and then also getting really close and honest with my friends. Austin, you were one of the first friends of mine, but also my other friends, and just telling someone that you're going through a situation makes it so much better. Because then when you do go out and in case the worst happens, they know what's going on in your life, and you have that kind of trust there. So in college, it took a lot of growing for me to really understand and to be honest with not only myself but to the people around me of what's going on in my life.
nice. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, of course. No, I listen to your guys' podcast all the time, and like I know Lindsey and you talk about this type of thing, and having those close connections in that community around you really makes a difference in your life.
So you mentioned it a little bit about your coping mechanisms and coping mechanisms right now, but when you were kind of in college and really relying on your friends, were there things that helped more than others? Were there like certain friends that you sought out specifically to kind of talk through these feelings, or kind of how did you cope with that anxiety?
Yeah, no, great question. I think there's a lot of ways people, especially in college, who have anxiety cope with it. Um, one of them is working out. Physical exercise really helps. Again, I'm not a medical profession, but I'm sure Austin and Lindsey you guys can elaborate on the effects that working out does to your mental state. Um, and that was one of them that worked a lot. I would go to the gym and just run until I was exhausted, and then when I come home, I wouldn't really be that anxious because I was more tired, and I wasn't overthinking because I was just exhausted. So that helped. Something called I did something called like walk through meditation, where I listened to like a YouTube video and it like talks you through how to meditate and like whether it's at the ocean or not. That helped a little bit at night. I remember Austin. If you don't remember this, Austin and I used to put a timer on your iPad for meditation music, and that's how we went to bed.
Yeah, it was like this. It was like this. Honestly, I think I don't remember like the specific playlist, but it was like it was like this weird monk music, and it was like
Yeah,
super calming and like yeah, it was strange. But we'd not blast it, but we'd have it in like we had some speakers and stuff set up, so like obviously when you were going to bed, you could hear it pretty well, and yeah, we would. I definitely remember that.
yeah. We would meditate ourselves out into because a lot of anxiety, I feel like a way to really treat it is to calm yourself down and then whether it's meditation or working out that worked well with me or even talking it through, Lindsay, like you said with Austin, is really just to one thing I learned was anxiety is really good. It's good that we have it. It protects us, but sometimes you need to tell your body that you're okay.
Yeah, it's all about monitoring and metering those fight or flight responses that you have
Hmm.
to like random situations.
Exactly. And mine's always flight, by the way. I never fight during situations. I just get out.
All right, good to know.
Yeah.
Well, no, that feeling of getting out. I mean, that like when I was at my worst, dude, it was weird. Like obviously my the worst bout of anxiety I ever experienced wasn't actually in college. Like it was minor, like minor effects and stuff, but never really like to the extent of panic attacks or anything like that. Up until that first summer, well, I guess second summer after college, this summer 19 that it really hit me, and that whole idea, like you said, the flight. I was like, I was in any situation. I was going to the grocery store. I was going to work. I was going, meetings. I was going, and I remember just sitting there like kind of, watching my clock or whatever, watching the time, and just like and Lindsay, I remember, I was telling you, I was like, I think I have agoraphobia because like I was, I was like not wanting to be anywhere. I was like, okay, like cool, yeah, you guys have fun, I'm good. I was just peacing out, like and trying to escape the situation and get out any way I could. So I definitely feel that when you when you mention that. That's yeah.
I mean, we mentioned it a little bit in our last episode. I'm gonna kill that dog. We mentioned it a little bit in our last episode that it's important to understand how you particularly respond to those situations and how your individual reaction is, because kind of like what you were talking about, Drew, like you went for a run and that is directly related to that flight response, right? So you're kind of acting towards that, like, all right, my body feels like it needs to like run away from the situation, so I'm going to physically run, and that kind of helps alleviate and kind of express some of those feelings that you're having,
Hmm.
rather than bottling them up. That running action is really what is probably helping you through those moments of more heavy anxiety, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, and I'll say this right now. I'm definitely not running as much as I used to, especially in high school. So one thing I've been doing during this pandemic also is I've been doing a lot of journaling. At first, it was kind of I used to think that you had to journal every day, but you really don't. I just do it when I feel like I need to let something out, and I'm very like tech savvy, I guess. So I like whether you write it or you do it online, whatever works for you. It's nice to I have about probably like 4 or 5 journals now, but it's nice to like look back and see like the hard times you went through and then how you overcame them. And that's kind of my way of releasing tension now, during this situation.
I really like that. I think it's important to look back on where you've come from, and I got the opportunity to kind of do that with Austin when he was kind of going through everything that he was going through. And I kind of got to reflect on everything that I'd been through and use those tools that I'd picked up and everything that I'd learned to help him through the stuff that he was going through. And it was just a really fascinating thing to look back and say, wow, look at where I was and where I've come from. And it kind of like you were saying, it does help reduce some of your current anxiety because you look back and you're like, wow, I've handled so much in my life already. So what I'm currently going through is just, another one of those valleys that I got to make it through.
No, yeah, and I mean, it's interesting too. Like, never did I, I always had like journals lying around and stuff, or like especially in college, with everything that's going on. And Drew, you can attest for this. Like, we had the fraternity. It was busy. It was rowdy. There
Yeah.
was never really like the right moment, or some peace and some solitude, or to kind of sit down and do that. And like, the whole idea of like self-care, we didn't, I mean, aside from the occasional, staying in, hanging out, playing video game, things like that. Like, I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of room, to like practice self-care, to sit down in just pure solitude, uninterrupted, and just focus, or things like that. And so, um, it was definitely interesting to, for you went out and ran. I know for me, sometimes, when I was at my worst, like the thought of like running was fine and everything, but then I was just so paranoid, and like for me, a lot of it, like with the panic attacks and stuff, like my heart would be racing. And so me working out, or me like running, and things like that, would obviously bring my heart rate up. And then what I would find is, when I get back, like, I'm having a hard time. Obviously, 15 to 20 minutes or so after your workout, you're good. And I was finding I was like, still like psyching myself out, and like I couldn't like get my heart rate down after that point. So I just, I wouldn't even come close. I wouldn't want to do things that were going to raise my heart rate, just because I didn't want to like instigate a panic attack or anything like that. But the journaling thing's huge. I started journaling every day back in August. Um, and I mean, it's been huge, to, like you said, Drew, kind of look back and kind of see where you've come, or how far you've come. I go back and look at some of the things that I was so freaked out about, and so paranoid and anxious about at the time, and just, it's definitely good for personal development, and like seeing how far you've come. Like, that's a huge step, just because in those moments I was like, am I ever gonna like is this ever gonna be over? Am I gonna see the light at the end of the tunnel through all this? And so the journaling piece is huge, and because for the longest time, I tried the whole like, oh, just write it, like Lindsey, how you said, your analogies, you put it in a box, and so people say like, oh, just write it down and burn the paper, and so it's something physical and tangible to see. Oh man, I did that so many times. I'd sit there and burn a piece of paper. I'm like, well, that was worthless. I didn't feel any different. Like, I wrote it all down, and I'm like, oh, this is the time. No more anxiety after this. I'd like, nothing happened. And I was still, and so I was just always, trying to find something tangible and things like that. And then I just kept this consistent routine of the journaling now. And I mean, I still do it to this day, before I do anything else. Once I wake up, I'll go and do my journaling, and it's, it kind of sets the tone for my day. So it's been huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's great, and I would love to. I want to talk about like, what you said about like, because I've struggled with this too. Is the running? Like you said, you were so paranoid. There might be so many things going on in your head. Like by running, your heart's already beating fast. I look at it like three levels. Level 1, I'm feeling like okay, I can do meditation, I can do running, I can do therapy, I can do all that. Level 2, I'm like, there's so many thoughts going through my head that maybe I can only do running because if I did meditation, I just couldn't do it. And then level 3 is like, I'm about to have a panic attack. I need to either need to talk to someone or I need to like go on a walk and just like breathe. And the idea for me is, at least when I started dealing with this in college, when it was really bad freshman year, was getting to really like a lower level. It's okay to accept that people have anxiety. I mean, everyone does to a certain extent, but just being able to maintain it in a healthy way for you can really run your life and not it run your life.
That's good. I like that. I like the levels and
Yeah, it's
differentiating that.
something I thought
We
I
should
came up
throw
with. I
Lindsay.
don't
We
know.
should throw that into like a little visual image. We'll get that. That'd be.
Yeah.
We'll put Drew's name on it. He'll be famous.
I hope so. I hope no. You guys get. I'm just excited to be on this podcast. How many viewers do you guys have now? Like 10,000.
Man, I wish.
10,000. I think we're almost at 1,000 total listens.
Hey, to all the listeners, this is the calm before the storm. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, Drew's the first guest. Now it's just gonna get rowdier and rowdier from there.
Yeah. Also, shout out to my work if you're listening. I love you guys. Okay, I'm done.
All right, Drew. Enough of you trying to get a raise. I see
Yeah,
how it is.
exactly. Right.
Um,
No, just kidding.
no, so I mean, I know you'd kind of briefly touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but you know, obviously you had your coping mechanisms outside of these last couple months. But how have things been for you, anxiety wise, panic attack wise during this pandemic?
Yeah, it's funny. Whenever there's a change, so like when it first started, I think my anxiety level, as I would say, like level 3, right? Like everything was bad because I had to work from home. I had to figure out, where I'm gonna work, my desk. Like, am I gonna work with my? I live with two roommates, so it could be difficult. They're all around the same age range as mine, but eventually it's crazy, and I think we underestimate how humans can adapt to certain situations. And my anxiety goes has been going away because of the routine I built. Every morning I wake up, I have a cup of coffee, and I go out to my balcony, and I kind of just I just breathe. I start working around like 7 o'clock, and initially this wasn't like this. Initially, I didn't have any routine. I would just roll out of bed, not even get like pretty much not even get dressed, be wearing like a t-shirt and underwear, and get on customer calls. And yeah, it was nice like the first couple of days, but it just felt messy. I didn't feel like I had a routine, and I just got anxious that I wasn't really starting my day. So now I have a routine where I get up, I eat breakfast, I work out at lunchtime, and then at the end of the day, I've been trying to do an hour walk every single day because vitamin D is really good for you, at least is what I've heard. And we're inside all day, all the time, and exercise again is key to like how I cope with this. So just getting outside, you don't have to run, just going on a walk is really what's like it's crazy to think something little as that is playing such a big role in my mental health, but it really is. And I know Austin, I know you go on walks with your dog too, and kind of like I wouldn't say I was inspired by you, but I kind of took that idea of because so if everyone doesn't know,
Tell him, yeah.
Aus-
Tell him how. Tell him how you started
Austin,
feeling
for some
crappy about
reason,
yourself.
my Apple Watch and his Apple Watch, they notify each other when we do workouts or when we go on walks outside. So I started getting notifications from Austin like finishing like a walk or a workout, and then it kind of made me want to go do it. So I guess thank you, Apple. I don't know what to say to that.
Accountability partners. Those of you out there, find a workout buddy socially distant.
Yeah,
That's
Lindsay, I'm gonna add you on your Apple Watch if you have. She
I
she's got
said
a
I'm
don't
gonna get
Fitbit,
you
have
an
an
Apple
Apple
Watch.
but
Watch.
there's
I'm super
Okay,
not bougie,
I'm just
so
gonna
here I
call you
am.
when I go on walks. Then how about that?
hey, but
Do it.
the dogs is now it's now plural because we got another dog. So
Oh,
now
that's right. Yeah,
now
tell me about that. Tell me about your dog.
both of my hands are occupied as so what was once a relatively you know simplistic walk with one dog is now, I mean, and the new dog, he's great. He's a little older, so he's not like puppy like in the terrible twos like Dodger is, but like, so him on a walk is totally fine. But like managing both of them is just like, oh crap. But no, it's good. I mean, I totally feel that whole like morning routine piece, and because as I talked about in previous episodes, like I was, I had a pretty solid morning routine. I was waking up at 5, hitting the gym, getting ready, doing my stuff in the morning, even prior to work, and I felt so much more energetic when I was going to the offices and stuff. And then this COVID stuff hit, and then not only is or was my world flipped upside down, it was hard to the gym was closing, couldn't physically go and do that anymore, so I had to now convince myself to work at home or work out from home, and that takes enough discipline in itself. And then I just started doing those walks, and so I'm glad that the competition. But he'd sit there and text me like, "Oh, nice walk," and I'm like, "Just do it, man. You gotta," And so it's funny how things work. But
Yeah,
no,
well,
yeah,
at
it's
first I
it's
was
good.
like, "Why
It's
is this notifying me that Austin's going on a walk?" Like, I don't care. Like, like why?
wow.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like, well, because I was like, eating dinner, and it said like Austin just walked like 2 miles. I'm like, okay,
Drew's over there vegging out on a DiGiorno's pizza, and he's like, "Well, I'm gonna
yeah,
eat some salad."
yeah, I'm like eating cake, depressed as hell, right? And then Austin's going on walks.
Hey, sometimes you just got to give it a little nudge,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But no, yeah, I mean, I feel that just because getting cooped up in the house and needing to kind of get outside. It's been nicer weather up here, and you know, so it's good to kind of walk away. Something I normally wouldn't be able to do. Is getting those dogs out, and normally they're cooped up sleeping all day, so it's kind of good for both of us. Um,
Yeah, and then during the walk, I usually listen to like I think right now more than ever is a chance for everyone to really focus on themselves and do honestly what makes you happy as well. So, like I have like 3 podcasts I listen to. I listen to Joe Rogan Experience. I listen to Frank Disconnect, and I listen to Caller Daddy at Barstool. Um, those are like my main podcasts, and I listen to those at work after like 3 o'clock, and then I also listen to them on my going on my walk, and like it makes me happy, and I think right now like you need something like that to make you happy, because it's tough. Your roommates, or if you're living with a fiance or a spouse, they're becoming not only your roommate but your coworker. They're becoming your everything. So just kind of keeping sane is my way of getting away as well.
My coworker is deaf, and he does not earn
yeah,
his
my
living.
coworker just sleeps all day. He sits there and screams and barks at people. So
Screams and barks at, yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Because it's a, wow. I just got that. Wow. Okay, this is why you guys didn't invite me on the podcast, because I can't pick up on things like this.
it's okay. You'll get used to it. You can't, and we're not in person, we're not on video, so you don't got the visual cues too. So I
Oh,
don't
don't
blame
worry.
you.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't
Um,
want anyone to see my hair right now. Oh my god, has your guys' hair gotten long?
I got a haircut finally on Sunday.
Oh, that's
They
right.
opened up,
Arizona's
and
open.
yeah, I mean, if you would have come to Flagstaff with your roommate, you could have gotten a haircut.
I know. I know. Austin, tell me about your the new dog you got. Where is he, a rescue? Where'd you get him?
So we got him from the Humane Society up here.
Okay.
Um, he is a rescue. He's about 3 years old, and so we got him a week ago today. So it's been good. It's been nice for Dodger to have a buddy, and he's we don't know a whole lot about his story. They didn't, he was only there for a few weeks, and so he, they don't know what his background was like, but you know, he's grown accustomed to us a little bit, and um he's been
Sweet
good.
dog.
He's oh yeah, 100%. And so it's nice, having both of them, and this whole idea, like even with Dodger last year, like I got him registered as an ESA, and he I don't know that whole like I'm on board with emotional support that animals can give you, and 100% like agree with that, just because when I was at my worst, and just being able to focus Like it was so hard for me to focus on something else. Like if I'm like, oh, my chest is tight, my head hurt, or whatever it is. I'm so consumed with that. So it's like, having a dog to take care of, or even take on walks or things like that, and now having another one, it's like, it it totally helps with those types of things, and they definitely like, there was times with Jess, and like she wasn't feeling well, and the dog just, the new dog just came up and rested his head on her, so it's things like that, that it's so powerful. So Drew, I think you should get a dog, but that's besides the
Dude,
point.
I would, but I feel bad. I live in a apartment on the third floor, and I I feel like I would love to be in a situation where I have like a yard for the dog to run around. Because right now it would just be like in my room and maybe like my kitchen, because my roommates are not big fans of dogs. So, but I totally would like. I would this point in my life, I would really like love to have a pet. Like I'd probably appreciate it so much more, and I'm a huge dog person as well. But yeah, just the situation, man. I mean, there's only so much I can do right now.
That's all right. My brother's been trying to convince me to get another dog, and I'm like, we don't have a yard. That would be super unfair to another dog. So we'll just keep the deaf dog and the tiny dog for right now, and it'll all be fine.
Tiny cricket dog.
She's very crooked. She walks sideways when we go on walks. It's
Oh yeah, I
hilarious.
mean, and Drew, if you get a dog, it's you're like, yeah, I'm gonna go on walks more. It's yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
buy
definitely a
into it.
motivational thing. Like I can see your dog like looking at you, and you're like, "All right, I got to go on a walk." Like, no, I see that. Like, I totally see that.
Yeah. Um, no, but I mean, yeah, I mean, you'll once you get in a bigger space, and getting out of that apartment life was definitely big for us. But and, it's just nice, not having to, as we kind of mentioned, like in college and stuff, like always kind of dealing with roommates, and like you don't really have the peace and quiet or things like that. And so even when we, Drew, you and I, like we'd moved into that apartment, like there was four of us. It was like, you didn't have like your own space. You didn't have like it's, your quiet time or whatever it may be, And so like thinking back, I'm like, geez, man, I was just like, I don't know if I was just on like a mental autopilot or what it was, but like, it was, like I'm just thinking back, like if I was in those situations when my anxiety was wild and out of control, like you know, I mean, Drew, you and I would just bounce each other, bounce ideas and chat back and forth with um, the crazy things that come up in our minds,
Oh
and
yeah, I
we'd
mean,
talk through them, and
if just people, anyone like Lindsay, just imagine a two bedroom with four adult men, and then one of the rooms had two twin beds in that they lived with no like space, and the other room had two beds.
It sounds like
A- Oh, and
just a
then
nightmare.
not only that, but like we were like the apartment was not meant for four people, obviously. So there was like a lot of baggage, a lot of too many dishes. Like it was there's such a small sink. It was just like I'm glad I didn't even just. I mean, some of the roommates did freak out. It wasn't me or Austin, surprisingly. Um, but it was just like, yeah, it was a lot. I'm very glad Austin was there with me.
yeah, Drew and I would just, have our talks, and some of the stuff we'd talk through is just like,
Yeah, I
it
mean,
was
dude,
good.
I mean, honestly, I'm trying to get comfortable in uncomfortable situations, as Kobe Bryant would say. Um, but yeah, that was definitely a toll on me.
Honestly, it's funny you say that, because that was like the biggest thing, as I was going through um, the last summer, these types of situations and stuff where, in college I was fine, crowds, things like that. But like now, dude, it was just so debilitating to the point where, Lindsay and I would have those chats, kind of like you and I would do, but Lindsay and I would have those chats, and we would talk about, and she would talk about, how a big thing that helped her, is forcing herself into those situations where she feels uncomfortable, and she kind of learned how to adapt, and so I really took that, in those situations when I feel like I couldn't even leave my house, I'd just take little steps in that direction. If it made me uncomfortable, I'd try to stick it out as best as I can. And ultimately it helped me grow back my confidence. It helped strengthen my like emotional intelligence and so on and so forth. And so it was huge.
Part of the reason why I encouraged Austin to do that was so he could build up his confidence, because I think anxiety gets so debilitating that you forget what you're capable of. And sometimes you have to force yourself into those uncomfortable situations so that you can remember, like, oh, this is who I am as a human being, and this is what I am capable of, and I'm stronger than my anxiety.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, and Lindsay, I think not only is that accurate, but, and you can probably attest to this, it's definitely easier said than done, right?
Oh, 100%.
100%.
Yeah, because there's so many there's so many times where I'm like, okay, I'm getting anxiety. I know what I have to do. I need to meditate. I need to go on a run. I got to do this. But when you're in that situation, when you're in that space of so much uncomfort, it's tough. It's really tough.
Oh yeah, Lindsay, like that time you threw me into a concert. Yeah, it was great. Lovely.
Wait, what? I didn't hear about this. Wait. Tell me about the concert.
No, no, no. So okay. So I was not. Let's see. I was nearing the precipice of my anxiety crisis, and as it was when Lindsay and I were having those conversations again, about. She's like, yeah, I just, each day I just force myself into situations that make me feel uncomfortable, and you build the tolerance and you build the confidence, so on and so forth. So I was like, oh, it's easy for you to say, sitting here in a crisis in my mind, and I'm like, trying to wonder, like, okay, like, cool, great, yeah, like, even being here right now, it's just like, it was such like a tough topic at the time. But then so it was like. We had planned like in August and stuff. She was like, she kept asking me. She's like, so there's this concert I'm going to. Her friend had bailed, and she had the ticket, she had the room, everything good. She just didn't want to go to Vegas by herself, and so I was like, oh yeah, I know, and I was trying to do everything I could to completely avoid this situation, but after weeks of her basically nagging me to go, I just decided. I was like, you know what, screw it, we're gonna go. Like, um, and so when we ended up bringing Jess, and so it was Jess, Lindsay, and I, and we go to this concert. And keep in mind, I didn't, it was like a, it's not a metal concert, Lindsay. It was like a,
It was like hard rock.
so like a hard rock concert. So like I'm not like a huge hard rock fan too. So I was like, oh
Hmm.
great, we're just gonna be a bunch of metalheads in this concert. I'm like, tight crowds, narrow spaces. Oh, I was like, oh, this is
Worst
great,
nightmare.
lovely, wonderful. And it's in Vegas, and um, and then when we get there, she drops this like bomb on me, and I was like, well, great, I'm going home. Um, but no, so I was like, dude, like, all right, I'll agree to it. And oh man, I was running through my mind, like I was like, oh, this is gonna suck. This is gonna suck. Here I am, like I can barely go to the grocery store, and she's like, yeah, let's go to a concert where we get to stand up for 5 hours, and it's hot. And I was like, oh, just talking myself out of it. Um, so we end up going. It was good. Great time. Like, I had to definitely, work through. When we got there, and they were checking in on me, like, and I did my best to enjoy it. And it was actually a really good time, and ended up enjoying some of the songs and some of the bands that were there. But um and then when we get there, she's like, so I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to have another excuse not to go, but that was the venue that we had gone to was the same. It was the same venue that the Vegas shooting happened at. So then I'm like, oh great, lovely, wonderful, and like running through my mind, like, yeah, no, I know. So she didn't drop that on me until we got there, and so I was like, oh well, can't do anything about it now. So, and so, but honestly, like, it was the definition of that, placing yourself in something or an uncomfortable situation, and so I had to kind of adapt. I had to, kind of not jump out of my shell, but like had to trust myself and remind myself, like, I've been, big crowded places before. I've been to concerts and venues and things with, even more people. And, it's just like a good reminder. And we had a good time, and so it was a good experience to do that. So I definitely, so if you're ever feeling that way, Drew, just talk to Lindsay and we'll put you on we'll go on a cruise. We'll be isolated in the middle of the ocean.
Dude, you know what? Honestly, so this is really funny, and I don't mind admitting this, but I'm having a hard time, like sometimes with social situations, which is weird because I'm usually like a social person, and like I don't know, like through the fraternity, and hell, my job is sales, but like for some reasons I get like really anxious about like going out to bars and sort of thing or going on road trips. So my therapist, I guess, I don't want to refer to her name. She told me to try exposure therapy. She said to create a list of 5 things or 5 things that scare the living crap out of me. And then, can I say that? Am I allowed to say that on this podcast?
Yeah, yeah, you're good.
Okay. Okay. They scare me. 5 things. And then once the pandemic ends, do those things and make sure you're prepared about what's going to happen, knowing that you might get anxiety during them, and keep doing those things until it goes away. So I don't know. I might try it. It scares me a lot just thinking
So
about it.
what's number one?
So number one was going on Austin. You remember that drive we took from like here to like Flagstaff?
Yeah.
From okay, so I live in San Francisco and I went to school in Flagstaff, Arizona, and I helped Austin fly down because I wanted someone to drive with me. And it was about like a 14-hour drive, but I think it was like 11, maybe 11 hours. And
Felt
the
like
big
14, 15.
one of the biggest fears I have in the world is being trapped in a car
Yep.
going like somewhere where it might take like 11 hours and having like a full-on panic attack in the middle of
Yep.
nowhere in the desert.
And you're helpless. You
And
can't
your
do
help is
anything. It's
yep.
hot. Yeah, dude, I've been there.
So
100%.
that's like the big. So according to her, she wants me to try that. Now I don't know if I want to.
So what would that look like? You driving a Flagstaff or what?
Pretty much. I was thinking about it. It might be just me driving to Flagstaff and like. But here's the thing. The only thing, if I'm by myself, it doesn't scare me. Like I don't mind if I like freak out and like have to pull over or whatever. But like if I'm with other people and I'm like maybe trying to impress like a girl or like I'm with friends and I like care about what they think, then like yeah,
No, I feel that. But like if I'm with Jess or Lindsay, you, Drew, or like
yeah,
somebody I'm close to, and they
right.
know of the situations, like and I totally feel that. Like, oh, I could just pull over, yada, because like when I'm by myself, I'm not that. Like, even though I have, I could pull over, I could do whatever I want. Like, it's almost worse for me because I'm like, well, it's just me. If something happens, I pass out at the wheel. I'm done for. Nothing, it's something like that. But no, I totally feel that, and um, yeah, and I mean, I remember when we had gone on that long drive from San Francisco, it was that instance where we were trapped bumper to bumper traffic, and you can't go anywhere, you can't turn around, you can't escape. So we were going through those mountains. It was hot. It was like 100 and something degrees,
Oh
and
yeah,
I was just like,
Lindsay. Like
"Oh,
it.
this sucks."
Imagine there was traffic in the middle of the desert. Like that's what happened.
Desert mountains, and I'm just like, "Well, this is where we die, Drew."
I mean, that's kind of what it's like coming up from Phoenix sometimes when you get
Yeah,
Yeah,
trapped in the
when
17.
there's an accident.
Yeah.
No,
but
but like,
yeah.
no, but this was like what, I think it was right outside of Bakersfield, and so we still had some ways to go. It wasn't like hopping up on the 17. You're like, oh, this traffic sucks, but I really only have 90 miles to go. We had a good 300 plus miles to go, and I was like, oh, this is. It was not. It was not good, but we did it. We survived. But so where are we going, Drew?
Yeah, but I mean, here that's another thing. I mean, I was driving with you. Like you're one of my really good friends, but sometimes I'm not always in the car with one of my really good friends, and we might want to go on a road trip to see someone else. So I don't know things like that. It might sound weird, but that scares the crap out of me. It really does.
I mean, you don't know me, so I'll just fly to you and we could drive wherever. I'm down.
I think it comes to the fact that like when you have anxiety, sometimes you feel like there's no way out,
Oh, 100%.
and that completely ties with this situation, right? Like if I feel like I'm having a panic attack, I feel like there's no way out. And there is. There always is. There's always a way out. But like, it just freaks me out. And let's go to, I don't know, you want to go to Disney World in like Florida or something?
Are we driving all the way to Florida?
Yeah, that's the point, right? It's got to be that long. Lindsay, you
No,
down? I don't really know you well, so maybe I'll freak out.
Let's drive to Florida, Drew. Let's do it.
I'm down. Okay. All right.
Florida. Okay, and then number 2 is skydiving, right?
Oh my god, yeah. No, what about, have you guys been on that was that skywalk? Like that overlooks the Grand Canyon? It's like a glass walkway out into the
I
Grand
haven't
Canyon.
been on that,
Uh-uh.
but if you go to the top of the Willis Tower in Chicago, you can walk out on this plexiglass like little square, and you can walk out there and
Oh
see
my god.
all the way down to the ground.
Wait, was it Willis Tower or is it Sears Tower?
It used to be the Sears Tower, but they renamed it the Willis Tower.
So we could drive to Chicago to do that, and then drive
Yeah.
back.
I mean, even thinking about it right now, like it scares me. But I'm down. I mean, let's do it. Why not? I don't care. Like exposure therapy. Yeah.
We'll put it to the test. It's like MythBusters, but like anxiety testers. We just
Anxiety test.
put
Dude, that'd
ourselves
be
in
so
these
funny.
situations.
We can like go around the country and like put like people in like snakes,
Oh,
if they're like afraid of
that
that.
whole fear factor thing. Yikes,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah, yeah.
Oh man, that's a whole
Okay.
different type of exposure therapy. But that's good. We should do a whole podcast episode on exposure therapy.
Yeah, and Lindsay will like, tell the people to do certain things. I can see
We'll do
Lindsay
a
being like,
we'll do a
go do
vlog.
that.
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
All right. Well, as we always do, I'm sure you're aware, Drew. We end each episode with a quote, and so today I had you kind of think through, your experience with anxiety, and so on and so forth. Um, and so you brought us this quote that has really helped you. And so we'll kind of go through it and add you to the mix in this, and you can talk about it, how it resonates with you, and then we can kind of each speak on it, and then we'll close out.
Yeah, no, it sounds good. I think before I say the quote, when I was really struggling with kind of anxiety at the end of each run I would go on because it would help, I'd kind of look out into the distance and kind of say to myself, when is this going to be over? Like, when am I going to be cured? And like, when am I just going to feel normal again? So this quote is by Eric Thomas. He's a motivational speaker. And it starts with pain is temporary. It may last for a minute, an hour, a day, or even a year, but eventually it will subside and something will take its place. If I quit, however, it will last forever. And the reason why this resonates so much with me is because, again, when you're anxious and you're afraid, no matter what it is, you feel like it's going to be forever. You feel like this is the rest of your life, but in reality, it doesn't last forever. Like the quote says, it may last a minute, an hour, a day, or even a year. But eventually there will be a light at the end of that tunnel.
I really like that quote. I think it's a good reminder that like everything is temporary. Like even just looking at the pandemic and everything we're going through right now, it's temporary, right? Like it's not going to last forever, and how you're feeling right now won't last forever. I think that I really like this quote too because when I was going through everything I was going through with my mom and all that complete nightmare of a situation that I was having to go through, I kept reminding myself that at some point this will end and things will get better and I won't feel as crazy or sad or anxious as I feel right now.
Oh yeah, and I mean, when you showed me this quote, I was like, wow, that's like speaks truth. Just because I was totally in that boat last summer, man. I was like, it was like June of last year, and I was like, oh, this, and I like sensed it coming, like, and I'd never experienced, the panic attacks and things like that before. So I just remember day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month, and it was like months. So that entire summer, I was just like, each day felt like it was an eternity. Like, And I was like, oh, is this ever gonna end? I remember like looking forward to going to sleep just because that was the one time that I can like turn my mind off, and not have to think about things or stress or worry. And so, that was the hardest thing for me to grasp. Um, was that, yeah, this sucks now. Like, it really sucks now. It's debilitating, feels like it's never going to end, but I push through, and obviously like my anxiety hasn't gone away. It's never going to go away, and I think that's the biggest thing to pay attention to. There's not like a end all cure all for anxiety. Um, but as you say, it says eventually it will subside. Something will take its place. So there's things through all the different techniques and self care activity or things that I'm doing to take care of myself. Those things are taking up space in my mind. They're taking its place, and we get better and we get stronger. We get more confident in coping with what was once debilitating to us. And so I think it's super powerful to kind of resonate. That quote really resonates with me. So good job, Drew. You're gonna be our quote guy from now on.
Dude, I'm so down. I can be I could be that guy where if you guys ever want anything on a podcast and you just want to like look something up to fact check it, I can also do that. You know, I'm
Drew's gonna be our
our
our Hey
Jamie
Google and our Hey
or hey,
Siri.
yeah, exactly. Honestly, I thank you guys for having me on. This was a lot of fun, and this is cool to be on your podcast.
No, of course. Thanks for being on. So we hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Um, we hope you're all staying safe out there, while also still being mindful of your mental health. Being sure to take time for yourself during these times. Stay positive. We would appreciate if you did enjoy this episode, to leave a review, give us a like, subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on. Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. We'd love it if you'd leave us a review, so it helps increase the reach and get this podcast out to as many people as possible. Thanks again for listening, and tune in next time for another episode of The Disconnect.